Well, hello there, and you join us here today to look at some watch collections, affordable and a little bit more. 5K, 10K, let's get into it. If you're looking for a whole bunch of watches, you will find a few just below this video. Check them out there. Also, click the watchfinder.com link in the description as it really helps. Thank you. Tom, you and I think we do a pretty good job of putting together some watch collections, but I think we can do better. And I think we can bring someone in who can teach us a thing or two.
Yeah.
None other than the authorized retailer of over 40 brands. It is the face of the Teddy Bullstar channel. Hello, Teddy. How are you doing?
Woohoo! Very well. Very well. Good to see you guys. Never thought that would be a meme in itself, just to say very simple words.
It is amazing. You have become effectively the face of the industry. People know you. People talk about you. People spot you in the street. They faint in front of you. They ask you to sign their bosoms. What does it feel like?
I've never done that. I'm putting that on record right now. I've never signed anything of the sort like that. But it's been a crazy ride. I had no expectation when I started this. And I'm sure similar to you, when you guys were getting this going, you guys were a huge inspiration in the early days, especially because you were at the forefront of producing, I think, top tier content in the watch space. So
thank you.
I've just been following the passion since. There really was no expectation when I hit the red button, the infamous red button for the first time. I was hunched over, horrible delivery. I think we looked at it last time with much chagrin to myself because I was like, oh boy, I don't want to look at this. I just felt like I was in a torture cell for a second looking at my old videos, but it's been a fun ride. It's been a very fun ride. And when you can infuse passion and something you're interested in, something that challenges you, something that keeps you interested, it's a great marriage. It's a great marriage. So I'm loving it.
Well, we appreciate all your hard work. But today we're going to put together some watch collections. We're going to put together a 3-watch collection, both for $5,000 and for $10,000. And those collections are going to be split between sporty, dressy, and wild card. And why don't we get straight into it? Starting with the guest, what is your 5K 3-watch collection within those categories, Teddy?
Okay, so I'm going to go through the order of sports first, and then we'll go dress, and then we'll go wild card. So for my sports watch, I am going to go for a brand and a watch that I owned in the past. Love this brand. When I was first getting into watches, there's this element of logical thinking about how I collect, but then there's also the passion and romantic side of why I collect. And I found like the German tool watch, utilitarian watch, it just spoke to both aspects of why I collect and why I get interested in some of these things. So it made it easier for me to rationalize the absurdity. So I went with a Zen 104 here. I think it's a great watch that combines some upside of sports. It's very wearable. It's also something that I think is unassuming, but its utility is right there at the forefront that allow you to get a lot of just use on a day-to-day. So if you're looking for that standard pillar, this just makes a ton of sense. 200 meters of water resistance. The watch just has different dial colors to choose from. You have Arabics, you have traditional just markers, double AR coating. Looks like you can just grab the hands right off the dial. And just Zen, the origin story, founded by a flight instructor, early 1960s. All of that just resonated with me. And why I also just appreciate this watch too is it has a little sentimental value to me. And I think it's a great watch if you're looking for some under $2,000. It was a piece that I remember I was wearing this in front of like my cousin who's a pilot, and he didn't even know really much about watches, but he saw this on my wrist and he's like, what is that? And he was just so enamored by it and just how pure it was in terms of its utility. He's like, I need to have that. At the time, I was like, I don't know if I want to, part with this watch. But he basically just bought it off my wrist. I gave it to him for a good price because I'm a good cousin. But that also is kind of a fun little story I always like with this piece. And, top grade movements, usually regulated really well. This is just a killer watch with money.
Yeah, I like to rate sports watches by their ability to survive the apocalypse. And I think a Zen will be right up there for that.
I agree. Dress category. Now, this is a piece that... and it goes in tandem with this brand that just resonates with me as well. I mean, this is a watch I actually have in my personal collection. I think this brand it's weird to say underrated because of the size of them. I was fortunate enough to visit their manufacturer, but also their museum earlier this year. This is Longines. And why I say underappreciated, because that's an absurd term for a brand that sells over $1 billion a year, but they are in the historical just idea of watchmaking so important. And I think so many people overlook what they were doing in the late 19th century, the 20th century. I mean, this brand had a dual time zone watch in 1908. They had chronograph in the early 1900s and in a pocket watch chronograph in the 1870s, I believe. I mean, it's a crazy amount of history, and so many people just associate this brand, I think, now with kind of this $2,000 to $4,000 price range, but they were known as really being at the forefront of, like, along with like a Rolex and Omega, and I mean, these type of brands being almost a leader in that early 20th century. But I have the Longines Heritage Classic sector. I just love the simplicity of this watch, the balance, the symmetry. It's just a stunning piece. I also think that its wearability, 38.5 millimeters, it just works well on me. I have a Beads of Rice bracelet version that I think just pairs with the watch well. It's not a watch that you would think would look great with a bracelet, but it does. Looks great with a variety of other straps. It does only have 30 meters of water resistance, but I still find myself wearing a watch like this all the time. So I'll wear this more casually. I think it looks fantastic. Lug to lug is pretty reasonable. You're under 48 millimeters there on the lug to lug dimension. And I just think it's a beautiful watch. It's, I think, something I can go back to time and time again. And now we've seen the sector dial become this crazy kind of phenomenon in the industry where so many people are trying to imitate it. Longines has history of producing these, so big fan of this one as well.
Your wild card, please, Teddy, to complete your 5K collection.
I'm going to look at a watch here that is one that I just reminded myself of because I just saw this again in person, and I thought, this is, again, pretty compelling piece. This is Traska. This is their Venturer GMT. This was one of the first watches and brands to start to roll out the True GMT, Traveler GMT 9 series from Miyota. So this is like a 4 hertz isolated local hour hand function watch. But why I wanted to mention this piece was the addition of that GMT function. You also are getting a lot of, I think, value for money here. So this is a brand. Founder is based in the US. Obviously, they're getting some parts from different parts of the world. But for around $700, you also are getting a stainless steel bracelet case that's also hardened. So that's 1200 HV on the Vickers hardness scale. For context, untreated stainless steel is like 150 to 200. So with this, I remember being able to test out the scratch resistance of like one of these links. And I reached out to them one time. I think this was like 4 years ago. I'm like, hey, this looks very interesting. This was a different watch at the time, but same hardening treatment. And they were very adamant about sending me a Rolex Submariner link. I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yes, just test it. And I'm like, I'm not going to hold back. And I'm going to test out the scratch resistance of this. So I do it with a spring bar tool. I'm just scratching up these links. And it was incredible how resistant this was. And you're looking at that level of hardness. This is something that's almost on par with that of Zen with their tegimented cases and like Damasco. Those are all retailing above $1,000. You're getting that for under $700. True GMT functionality. And then also the clasp on this has on-the-fly adjustment. So you have quick release. So for finding that with a brand, that's one of the areas where in, say, micros or little indie brands in this price range, it's typically harder, and those details are usually glossed over more because I find bracelets and straps are almost like a way to cut costs rather than is to sell a consumer on a watch. But to see those levels of detail here in a watch of this price, I think it's pretty sharp.
There's a lot of specs for the bucks.
Yes. Spec junkie, yes.
Tom, what is your $5,000 3-watch collection, starting with the sporty choice, please?
For my sporty choice, I've gone for the wonderfully named Nevada Chronomaster Aviator Sea Diver Orange Boy SL. So SL, I believe, stands for Special Logo. You can see the curly N at the top of the dial there instead of the N inside the shield. I think that's right. It's either that or Superluminova. I'm not sure. Of which there is plenty. So loads of lovely creamy lume on the indices and hands. And you can see there's a tiny L above Swiss at the bottom of the dial, which denotes Luminova. And that is the only difference between this watch and the original 60s model, of which this is a reissue. And there wasn't an L, there was a tiny T for tritium. But yeah, that is the only difference, because this is a bang-on reissue of that classic 60s hardy, tough diver chrono. Yeah, just impeccably recreated. Beautiful vintage stylings all across the board, all that fun stuff. your tachymeter scales, your bezels, your bidirectional bezels, shiny orange hands. I think there's like a yachting timer or something. I don't know if that's the orange section of the subdial. Just loads of cool dive vintage stuff. Really nice vintage proportions as well. The 38mm steel case there. A Solita SW510 inside. It's just a lovely vintage chrono there. And as Nevada say, for versatile men only. So yeah, if you're staunchly rigid or strict, then this isn't the watch for you. But just shy of $2,000, $1,975 for that. So yeah, cool, nice, rugged, tough vintage diver there. Really, really nice.
That's a piece too. I want to give the shout to Gamle. He's the kind of the thought and brainchild behind bringing that back, that brand, and also responsible for like Volcane and Excelsior Park. I think I just had an interaction with him when I was in Switzerland one time. He just tapped me on the shoulder, and then he just shows me all these watches, and I was just so impressed. So I totally agree with that pick, Tom. That's a phenomenal brand.
Nice, yeah. He's a clever chap by all accounts.
I bumped into a certain someone at the airport wearing one of these, and that certain someone was Roger Smith. So,
really,
what a compliment.
So for my dress watch, I'm going for something clean and crisp, and at a damn reasonable price point. It's Nomos. You get all of that good stuff from those guys. And this is a classic timepiece, the Tangente Midnight Blue. Now, am I saying that correctly? Is it Tangente? Tangent is probably how
Go on,
I'd
Teddy,
go with
correct him.
See, people that are the hardest on me are the Germans. I try my best. I say Tangente, but they are probably going to be upset with me how I say that as well. So okay. I try my best, but that's how I say it.
We're trying our best, the Tangente here. And this one in a very beautiful, bold, midnight blue dial, which sits in brilliant contrast to the golden hands and markings. Not sure if that's gold or golden colour hands, but very striking nonetheless. Only 35mm in diameter, so very, very elegant. Perfect for a dressy watch. Very simple round stainless steel case, bipartite case, with a sapphire glass. It's not all completely dressy though. There's a bit of functionality there. Splash proof, Andrew. 30 metres of water resistance.
I do love a good splash.
But inside you've got the wonderful in-house caliber Alpha. So Alpha denoting Nomos's first in-house caliber, and still they're most commonly used across their catalogue. Manually wound, 43 hours of power reserved. Looks gorgeous. You've got tempered blue screws in there, rhodium plating, and there's lots of perlage and sunbursting finishing here and there. £1,660. Don't know what that is in dollars, Andrew. I'm sure you're going to pick me up on me going over the budget later, but yeah, that's my dressy.
So for Nomos, I mean, this was also, as I spoke at the beginning, another kind of gateway brand for me. It just resonated, very simple. And I almost find that Nomos is a perfect, for the people that at least understand the design language. It's not for everybody, but I find that there's a lot of like influence in this style in so many aspects of our industrial design in the world that we live. It's very much about just simplicity while also getting rid of excess, at least from a design. Some people don't like that, but one area where Nomos, I don't feel gets enough appreciation is just from being a manufacturer. They're a manufacturer first. I think we always think about design, but they're producing small components in their facility. To produce watches in Glasuta, to have the Glasuta standard, it's around 50% of the parts need to be made in the region. I think they're over 90% for Nomos. And this is a brand that's, as you're saying, Tom, like retailing prices under $2,000, which is remarkable.
I would say that Nomos, to achieve that level of quality, finish, for the price, has definitely sold its soul to the devil. It's the only thing I can think of that they've managed to do that with. But I'm glad they did. Tom, your wild card.
This is the Colour Ven. So devised by designer and inventor Mark Champkins for Mr. Jones Watch. This is not your classic analog watch. Well, it kind of is actually. Instead of hands, you've got coloured discs instead. So you've got a cyan hour disc, a magenta hour disc, and a yellow hour disc. And you can read the time because each disc is marked with a very small white line to show you where it's pointing. And as they move around, the discs continuously intersect in this nice sort of Venn diagram pattern, and different colours emerge. And so it sort of changes throughout the day. You get all the sort of colours of the CMY. No black. The black is in the case, unless you go for the silver one. It's CMY silver, which isn't a thing. But yeah, really cool. Another doozy from Mr. Jones. They just really creative bunch of people, and their collaborations are just top notch. They find these really wonderful illustrators and designers and things. And this is a great watch. £545. Currently sold out. I don't think it's limited, so you just need to keep checking back if you want to get your hands on it. But yeah, love it.
I've never seen that one in person. I mean, I've seen that online in places, but it's interesting.
Well, if you've ever found yourself in the situation where you need to educate someone on subtractive colour, this is the perfect watch.
Can't think of a time when that's come up, but yeah, colorblind people stay away from that one, that's for sure.
Andrew's like a blast at parties. So, do you like colour theory?
That's an icebreaker.
Always a winner.
Well, it comes around to me to pick my 3-watch collection of $5,000. Let's see if it's any good. And dear viewer and listener, I hope you're playing along at home. Write down in the comments what you would be picking and tell us whether or not me, Tom, or Teddy have picked the best collections. So enough stalling. My sporty watch is the Christopher Ward. Yes, Christopher Ward, I know, again. C60 Atoll 300. And of course, we all know and love Christopher Ward for applying quality and price together. They do a great job of... They're supplier people. That's what they are. They know how to get the best from suppliers at the best prices, put them all together for a very, very solid watch. So you're talking about a 40mm diver, kind of in the style of the Yachtmaster there, with the silvery embossed bezel, but you're also getting 300 meters of water resistance, a Sellita SW200 caliber. But the part that I like most about this, because I'm simple, I'm basic, I like the color of the dial. They've gone for fume, but it's not just from light to dark. They've changed the colors there, and it looks a little bit like the Holiday I'd really like to have. You know, the wooden hut at the end of the sticks, and it looks down, white sand, pale blue. I can't have that Holiday, but I could probably afford the £915 that this watch costs. They've even gone so far, and I love these kinds of little details, to match the colour of the dial with the date wheel. I'm one of those people who likes that kind of little thing that they do. They have done that. You also get other little details like the Trident second hand there, which in case of emergencies, I think, Tom, you've pointed this out before, if you were to find yourself shipwrecked on a desert island and you needed a small fork, you've got one right there. You don't need to know the time anymore, do you? Because you're not going to be late for anything. You're on a desert island. So Christopher Ward really thinking it through. There are many Christopher Wards that I could have chosen for this first sporty watch, but I really, really like the dial of this one, and I think it'd be a great all-rounder. Might be a little tricky for diving with the embossed numbers on the bezel, so keep in the shallows, swim somewhere nice and bright and warm, and you'll be fine.
Has there been another brand that has completely changed how the watch enthusiast public sees them in like a 12 to 18 month cycle than Christopher Ward? I give you both a lot of credit for this too. I think you've really helped champion this, but rightfully so, with like things like the Belcanto, the 12, and I've just been so caught off guard by how they've just been coming in hot with all these different models, and how they've also just shifted the narrative around this brand. They've gone from people seeing them kind of like this micro category to being like a true independent and one of the leaders in that new just collection of brands that are trying to push these new ideas forward. I mean, it's pretty impressive what they've done in developing these new watches that they've been releasing lately.
Yeah, really incredible. I think that they're doing an amazing job. I think Andrew not being able to shut up about them has maybe given them a little bit of a boost. And I think the logo has really helped them out tremendously as well. Getting rid of the words Christopher Ward on the dial and just having that nice logo applied to their dials it was a shrewd maneuver.
For the dressy watch, for your consideration, I'm going to bring in Tudor, and it's probably not the Tudor that you are thinking about, because this is the 1926. Tudor has done a great job of filling its back catalogue full of loads and loads of stuff that's hard to navigate. It's really easy to lose sight of the hidden gems in there, and I think the 1926 is one of them. I have chosen a silver dialed steel cased with blue hands and markers in 36mm, because I think for a dress watch, 36mm is an absolutely bonza size. You can share it with you. It's not that funny.
Are you still on holiday with your atoll?
You can share it with your partner, so actually it's only half the price, and that price is just £1,610 very specifically on the strap. You aren't going to be enjoying the in-house movements with this one. It is an ETA or Solita base. I don't know anymore. They kind of keep that stuff pretty secret. So only 38 hours of power reserve, but it is 100 meters of water resistance, so you can enjoy it on the day-to-day as well. And it's weird to say this now, because I remember when Tudor was the entry into watches, but now Tudor is such a prominent and well-known brand that this is the entry into, super exciting luxury Tudor. I also really like the old style self-winding script at the bottom half of the dial and the little smiley face. So the watch is like going like that. What do you think of this watch, guys?
I really like this watch. You're talking about under $2,000 to get into Tudor. Some will say, okay, it lacks maybe some personality like that of the Black Bay, which probably is true. But this is more of like the traditional nod to classic watchmaking, which when we think of Tudor, we think of more of these tool watches, Marine Nationale, Tudor Submariners, but this is kind of a connection to like that Oyster Prince. It's also for that entry door into the Rolex Tudor organization in general. If you just told somebody that you can get at retail pricing a watch in that organization for under $2,000 and also has some sporty upside, versatile, I think it's a good pick.
Moving on to my wild card piece, and speaking of Gamle, another project that he's been involved with, very divisive, but I think very, very interesting, and great to see this kind of watchmaking coming in at a price point that is more available to more people. This is the Space One, and it evokes the very, very special feeling of the Dream Watch 5 from De Bethune. That watch costs as much as a house. This one doesn't, but you still get that spaceship aesthetic, and very importantly, you get the jump hour complication, which has been engineered on top of a standard movement by Theo Offray, who is also a very expensive French watchmaker. This watch has been very divisive. I've heard it referred to from anything from a spaceship to a car key to the band that you put around your leg when you've been in trouble with the police and they need to keep track of you. I personally love this approach to making watches. I think the boundaries are limitless and they should do everything and anything. It's going to be very, very limited and niche to the kinds of people who want to buy one, but if they do, it's 1,900 euros. If you want to pick up the blue titanium version, how many blue titanium watches are there out there? Very few. There's a forged carbon fiber version as well, and stainless steel, either brushed or polished. What do you guys think of this watch? Is it an or do you think actually it's pretty cool?
It's pretty cool. I don't know if I could pull it off personally, but I admire brands that are able to think about what can we bring to the table that is different from the competition, given the price constraints that are going to come along with it. At these prices, it's harder to separate with, your movement. That's why something like the Bel Canto, as you guys have like championed, I think was so unique because we were able to really start from the movement to differentiate. But this is using a case silhouette, right? Which I think so many people forget. We just see a case all the time. We see traditional lugs, traditional circular case architecture, but this is another area where you can start to express yourself, where it's not going to cost as much. But they go even a step further with these different case materials, which you typically don't see at these price ranges, as you mentioned. So I applaud the creativity. I think this is something that we have to see. And I've always been very just adamant about, even if it's not for you, because so many times we as collectors could only see our little tunnel vision, myopic worldview, where we can't see that, wait, that's actually a good thing. And whenever you can resonate with something, even something like this, if you can act with your wallet along with just your own passion and curiosity, that's a good thing, because that's how those people that complain all the time, we see the same old, you also have to throw a bone sometimes to these brands that are trying to do something different and stop just poo-pooing it.
Absolutely. After all, it is very, very subjective. You can't really tell someone else what to like intrinsically. You can't talk someone into thinking that wine tastes nice, for example. They either like it or they don't.
It's just a shame it's not also a USB drive. That's my only criticism.
Well, there you go. A whole bunch of watches for a whole bunch of price points in a bunch of different collections. Whose did you prefer? Let me know how well I did down in the comments below. And if you haven't heard of Teddy Baldassar before, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you got here without knowing, but go search him on YouTube, everywhere else. Go buy watches from his shop too. It's Teddy Baldassar with all the S's and all the R's. I'm sure you'll find it. Thank you so much, Teddy, for joining us and engaging in this fun romp of watch collectivity. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Always enjoyed it. It was great seeing you both. Thank you for finding the time in the busy holiday season. Merry Christmas to you both. Happy holidays, and hope to see you guys very soon.
You too.
Likewise. Thank you very much. And thank you, dear viewer and listener too. Goodbye.